From the Ear to There Travel Studio, this is the Ear to There Disney Podcast.
The Ear to There Podcast, it's time to start the show. Be sure to hold on tight, here we go. Exploring all the different Disney destinations. Ear to There, it's time to start the fun.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ear to There Disney Podcast. I am your host, Phil Gramlich. I am also the owner and the founder of Ear to There Travel, which is, of course, a Disney-specialized travel agency. It is my job, along with all of the vacationeers on the Ear to There Travel team, to take away all that stress, all that anxiety, and all that time that it takes for you to plan a Disney trip. Because listen, it takes a heck of a lot of time to plan a Disney trip. And we want you to focus on the really, really fun things like having a phenomenal time with your family and friends and enjoying the magic. And we help get rid of all that stress, all that anxiety, so you can have a blast. We do all of that at absolutely no extra cost to you. So we will get you the best possible package price or room-only reservation price. We will get you those discounts and keep looking for new discounts once your trip is already booked. We will handle dining reservations, fast passes, special event tickets, like Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party or Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party, transportation, golf tee times, you name it, we do it all at no extra cost. So you can listen to this podcast, you can meet every vacationeer, and that is our word for travel agents, or you could request your free, no obligation quote over at ear2theretravel.com. All right, this is episode number 194 for the week of March 2nd, 2020. And it's time, grab a drink, grab a snack, and as a famous mouse once said, on with the show. For the last 30 years or so, ABC and even an NBC show here and there have had Walt Disney World or Disneyland episodes. These are episodes where the characters of your favorite shows, like Full House or Boy Meets World or Game of Thrones, go to Walt Disney World. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding about the Game of Thrones thing. The Dothraki in the Magic Kingdom would not be a good fit. But these shows have gone to Walt Disney World and ridden the newest attractions, the most popular attractions, stayed at the new hotels, all kinds of stuff. So this week, and this is a show that it's inspired by a listener, this week we wanted to revisit all of those shows that went to Walt Disney World and Disneyland in the 80s and 90s. Actually, I think it's all 90s. There might be a couple, and there's some 2000s thrown in there. And this show was inspired by a message from my buddy Griffin in Virginia. So Griffin, thank you so much for coming up with this idea and sending it to me. And I hope you like this episode. I'm going to go now to a little musical intro with my guest. Enjoy. That's not a great music to intro you to. All right. Here to talk with me about his favorite TV shows. I thought of the 80s and the 90s, probably mostly 90s, that went to Walt Disney World is the man, the myth, the legend. You haven't heard from him in a while. It is Chuck. Don't call me Carlos Rodriguez. Chuck, how the heck are you?
I'm very good. Thank you. I'm glad to be back. It has been a while.
It's been too long, man. I've been saying it to Amy. I'm like, people are really tired of hearing you and not hearing Chuck. So I'm glad that you're back on. And dude, can you find a show more in your wheelhouse than TV shows going to Walt Disney World? Seriously.
Yes. And in fact, especially because like you were so limited as to what your first your intention for this topic was. Immediately when you said it, my mind expanded to like 30 other shows we could talk about besides the ones you were thinking of.
That's awesome because I am very, you know me, I'm very limited. My brain is very small.
Very, very limited, very simple, very simple.
See, Chuck, that's the new. Oh, wait. Darn, I hit the wrong button. I was going to give you one of these, but I didn't do it in time. I got to get faster with the sound effects.
Yeah.
But yes, I am very limited and very simple. So, of course, you know what? I want you to start because you mentioned one, and you called it the best special that ever went to Walt Disney World.
Yes.
So
yes.
you start us with that one because I agree with you, and it's just one of the first. I mean, it's pretty early on as far as Disney specials go, as far as TV specials. So, anyway, which one were you talking about?
When the Muppets went to Walt Disney World.
Right. So it's actually called the Muppets at Walt Disney World.
Yes. And what I was thinking was, I mean, there are so many Disney theme park specials, especially the anniversary specials that go back to all the way to the 60s. But this one was technically a TV show, The Muppet Show, that went to Walt Disney World. So that's why I did it.
So I remember seeing this when I guess I was 12 when this came out. I had yet to go to Walt Disney World. So this was like this huge like intro to the parks for me. What's weird about this one, and I don't know if you recognize this, there were 3 parks around when it opened. Hollywood Studios had only been, less than a year opened when this came out. But they make it look like all 3 are one big park. Do you remember that?
They definitely don't say that the Muppets had to take buses or monorails. They didn't. They did not. Yeah. Even when they went to the laundromat, textile services building, they didn't. They made it sound like it was all right behind each other. Yeah, a little misleading.
There's a song, "Love in a Laundromat," that is done.
Yes, there was. I remember when my first job, once I was full time at Walt Disney World and living there with the Disney Institute programs, we used to give tours of textile services, and there was an autograph picture of Gonzo and Camilla.
That's funny. That had to be just a fascinating tour.
It was. It really was, actually.
No, it is actually kind of cool. All right, so the Muppets are visiting Kermit's family. This is per Wikipedia, by the way. I did watch clips of all the shows we're going to talk about on YouTube last week when we planned on recording this, and then I had to cancel again on you. So I haven't watched it since last week, but the Muppets are visiting Kermit's family for their annual reunion when they meet up with Kermit's aunts and uncles. When the others learn that the swamp is right next to Walt Disney World, they sneak in and are pursued by a security guard named Quentin Fitzwaller, played by Chuck.
I always forget his name.
Also very famous from what's he in? It's Charles Grodin, but he's in a movie. He's like famously angry in everything he does. Like,
yes,
everything I saw when I was a kid with him, he was just always angry about something. So he's chasing him around the parks. Like I said, it's all one big giant park. There's no Skyliner. There's no monorail. There's no none of that. But do you remember? Because I haven't seen this probably since I was a kid. What attractions they hit? Do you remember how it ends? How the show ends? Any idea?
Yeah, I saw it a few years ago. It was on YouTube. Now it's only clips or a really bad version. But I remember catching it a few years ago for some reason or the other. They do go on Big Thunder Mountain when Miss Piggy goes on with it's not Sweetums. The name of the janitor at the Muppet Show. I always forget his name. I always forget his name.
Oh my God! Now it's going to drive me crazy because I remember him.
Look it up. Look it up.
Well, in the Muppets, the revival movie, they came out, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago or so, with Jason Segel and Amy Adams. They're gone from the theater for like 20 years, and then they open a door and he's in there sweeping, and
Fozzie, that's right. I haven't seen that in a long time.
And Fozzie says his name, and he's like, Fozzie, so nice to see you again. But he's never left. He's been cleaning the Muppet Theater for 20 years by himself. What is his name?
That's cute.
What is his name? I can't remember. All right. All right, Chuck, you keep going while I look up his name.
Well, okay. So I remember. Well, first of all, I do want to say, because when you introduced, how the show starts. So regular listeners to your podcast will definitely understand why I connected with what exactly happened at the beginning of the episode. Because if you remember correctly, Kermit was, of course, very excited to bring all the Muppets, all his friends, to the swamp to meet his family and to do their annual jamboree or whatever they do. But like myself, I would feel like, well, that's a waste of time when you know that you're only 2 miles away from Walt Disney World. That's more important than seeing family. And I remember having that thought even back then in 1990.
And even in 1990.
So I totally understood why the Muppets were like, sorry, Kermit, your family's boring. We're going to Walt Disney World. I totally got it.
You were a 14-year-old kid, I think, if my math is right.
I was 15.
15-year-old
yes.
kid. And you already knew that you were a grumpy old curmudgeon, and there was no way you were hanging out with your own with anyone's family that day. You're definitely
not for nothing, but actually, when we went in 1985, we were driving down to Miami to spend Christmas and New Year's, with the family in Miami, and we stopped at Walt Disney World just for 2 days. So it would have been like December 22nd and December 23rd, one day at Magic Kingdom, one day at Epcot. And I remember saying to my family, like on, midday through the 23rd, when they're talking about, we have our whole week left and we're going to, go to Miami and we're going to be with your grandparents. And I'm like, I'd rather stay here.
Well, who wouldn't though, right? You're a kid. You want to stay.
Well, yes. I mean,
Jeez.
But anyway.
All right. So so they ride. Here's what they do. They do Big Thunder Mountain. You were right. Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular, where I believe... Who's in the show? Let me look it up. Miss Piggy fights the bad guys in Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular. Then there's Star Tours, the Mad Tea Party, World Showcase, the Walt Disney World Monorail. The Utilidors are actually making an appearance. And the show ends. By the way, did you know Raven-Symoné was in this? She's like a little girl.
Yes, I remember, yeah.
So she would have been like...
It wasn't NBC, so it made sense at the time because she was on The Cosby Show starting that season.
Yeah. And the story ends with the Muppets having a friendly meeting at Mickey Mouse's office where Mickey and Kermit compare their company theme songs, When You Wish Upon a Star and The Rainbow Connection. And The Rainbow Connection is actually sung by Raven-Symoné. So what an ending. After that, the Muppets return to the swamp and find out Miss Piggy was remaining stuck in front of the movie ride, the great movie ride, with her feet still stuck in the cement.
Oh, yeah.
They return to Walt Disney World afterwards as Kermit tells Emmy Lou, who the heck is Emmy Lou? What Muppet is that? I don't know who that is. To go get the pick.
It's got to be one of Kermit's relatives, probably.
That makes sense. To go get the pickaxes. So that is that is the gist of the Muppets in Walt Disney World. With the Muppets at Walt Disney World. Okay. Here's a little trivia, last part. Jim Henson appeared on the Arsenio Hall show with Kermit the Frog to promote the show. It was Jim Henson's last live TV appearance. How about that, Chuck?
That makes sense. Yeah.
You don't get that kind of inside information anywhere but this podcast. It's true. All right, so...
No, only from something called Google.
Listen, not all podcasters are Googling and finding all this information.
No, not all. Not all do. Only the professional ones.
Yeah, some other ones that just say the shows that go and that's it, and they talk about their... Listen, we're going deep dives here. So did you know... All right, so what was the first sitcom? Do you know? The first sitcom, it was not on ABC, that went to Walt Disney World.
Are you sure? Well, Disney World, Disneyland, because I always thought it was
Disneyland.
Blossom. But
you're right. That's exactly... Darn, Chuck, you got me. You're right. It's Disneyland.
You mean when the episode is actually filmed at one of the parks?
Yes. No.
Yes.
But no, you were right. The first one was Blossom, and Nick Blossom's dad gets a job at Disneyland as an Elvis impersonator, which is all that I know about the show. I've never seen it. I couldn't find a clip online.
No.
But I did find out, though, how that much of the magic is lost when Blossom catches her boyfriend Vinny hugging another woman. That's bad news.
He was giving another girl the huggies. Remember from Muppets Take Manhattan?
Chuck, we just watched Muppets Take Manhattan last night.
Well, we just talked about it, so it made me think of it.
No, I watched it with the kid. We watched it with the kids last night.
I was not a Blossom fan, so I do not remember seeing that episode.
There were a lot of Blossom fans. My sister, who you know very well, was the biggest Blossom fan ever in 1993. She used to, you remember when the show would come on and she would do the dances with all the silly hats? Amanda, my sister, I hope she listens to this episode. Actually, I hope she doesn't. She would run and get hats every Monday when the show would be on. and do dances and take the hats off and try to mimic exactly what Blossom was doing on the show in the intro.
Do you think if Amanda has a daughter, you think she's going to call it Six?
You know what's funny is a couple of D23 Expos ago, I met Six. She was
nice.
She was there doing like, autographs and appearances, and I didn't recognize her, and we were standing next to each other looking at a Yoda mural made of M&Ms, made of Jelly Bellies. And we were just talking about the mural, and I was like, how cool is that? She's like, I know, right? And then later I was walking around, and she was there signing autographs, and it said Six from Blossom. I was like, that's right. I knew her face. Anyway, so Blossom went in 93. Also in 1993, maybe the most famous or infamous Walt Disney World episode of all time, The House Meets Mouse from Full House. How much do you remember about The House Meets Mouse?
I did not watch Full House past maybe late 89, early 90.
Oh, Chuck, we got to, this is an important one to talk about. Do you remember it?
No, I didn't watch it. I did not watch it. By the time I was 15, my television viewing became very sophisticated. I didn't watch any of those ABC Friday night shows.
What the heck? I don't. All right, so I had a little
I stopped
sister.
watching Family Matters. I stopped watching all of
Dude,
those.
how are we going to do this episode? This is what we're talking about. So, all right. So these are the ones that I came up with. So you're going to have to listen to me talk an awful lot on the show. Unfortunately,
don't worry.
That's what it is.
There was one that I found on YouTube, and I did rewatch the whole thing. So
which one? What was it?
Family Matters.
See, that one I've never seen. I've never seen the Family Matters one, but that is on my list. So here's the most unbelievable part in the House of Mouse. Michelle gets lost. I don't know what happens. She becomes the princess of the day on the Full House episode. And she gets to be in the parade, the 3 o'clock parade. Of course, that would never happen in a million years. She, gets like they pick her as the princess of the day. She gets a crown. She's like on the Aladdin float in the parade. I don't know which parade that was back in 93. You'd be better remembering that than I was.
Remember the Magic? I don't remember.
It wasn't Remember the Magic. That's like
right. So it was so I don't remember the one before it.
I don't either. But
I'm sure it still had that same glass Cinderella float that's been used in 20 parades.
Chuck, I don't even know why I asked you to be on the show, all right? Because you're not bringing a whole lot to the conversation today. So Michelle, even Kimmy gets to go on this vacation with them somehow. I don't know why. She all these shows. So all the relatives and all the neighbors wind up going there. That always happens. I think she went to Hawaii with the Tanners when they went to Hawaii too. She just gets to go. Well, Kimmy was like the funny part of the show. Anyway,
yeah.
So Joey and Jesse somehow have a radio show. I don't know how, because Joey was a stand-up comic and Jesse was an exterminator. He made a lateral move from an exterminator to having a live TV, like drive time radio show. I don't know how that's possible. And then he was able to do that radio show to hold it not only in the living seas, but in the darn tank, in the submarine that they have in there, in a little, I don't know, it's not a submarine, but it's a little habitat that's under the water. He and Joey get to do their radio show from in there. And that's unbelievable. Okay. So then Michelle is the princess for the day. She gets a tea party with a private tea party with Pinocchio, Dopey, Alice, the White Rabbit, Minnie, and Donald Duck in Toontown, and Mickey's Toontown Fair. I guess it would have been back then. What else happens? Steve can't come on the trip, her boyfriend. So DJ thinks she sees Steve everywhere. One of the places she thinks she sees Steve is in the parade as Aladdin. Why does that? Come on, Chuck. I need you to contribute here. Why is that a big deal? Because she sees Steve as Aladdin in the parade.
Probably because Aladdin had come out that season, that month or something.
No, the guy who played Steve did the voice for Aladdin in the movie.
I did not know that.
My Lord, Chuck. You're supposed to be an expert.
I'm only an expert on the interesting things.
Okay. So at the end of the episode, Danny proposes to Vicky, his longtime girlfriend, at the fireworks in Magic Kingdom. He actually has fireworks that they shoot in the air that says, "Vicky, will you marry me?" That never could happen. That's not a real thing. I don't even think drones could do that now in 2020. But that is the summary. I just summed up the entire episode. Oh, and Stephanie is extremely, extremely jealous of Michelle the entire time because she's the princess for the day and Stephanie isn't. So
obviously, because she's like Jan and Marsha. It's
exactly
like the same thing all over again.
So if you missed it, if you missed that episode, you have to go back and watch it. And now, Chuck, you have to go back and watch it because you brought nothing to the table with Full House.
I don't know what to tell you. I stopped watching Full House after like the first season.
All right, 1990. Where are you in the timeline? I'm going to give you 1995 and Family Matters. Can you bring it on Family Matters 1995?
Well, yes, because I forced myself to watch the Family Matters. It was a two-parter, so both episodes were on YouTube, and I did force myself to watch it. And yeah, you're right. They aired on in '95, like two weeks in a row. And so did you watch it or do you remember it?
I read about it. I watched a clip. I watched a couple of clips on YouTube, but I read about the story. I did not watch the entire thing. No, not recently. I definitely watched it in the 90s for sure.
Right, because you actually were watching Family Matters every week. So if you were, yes, of course, when that episode came on.
I actually did.
You would have watched it.
I definitely watched Family Matters every week. Full House, Family Matters. 95, I would have been 17 I wasn't getting invited many places at 17. I was already a Disney fan. So if I didn't have a hockey game that Friday night in high school, I was watching Family Matters at Full House. But anyway, go ahead.
So what I wrote down as I watched it, I wrote down a few notes to remember. What I found fascinating, which is definitely a trend in those shows back then, there's two trends that I picked up on personally. And I wonder if you or listeners, this makes sense to you. First of all, if the show usually did go ahead and highlight whatever was new at the time.
Right.
So whatever the newest park, the newest attractions, the newest hotel. So like in Family Matters, the story was that Urkel was a finalist in an inventors competition. And of course, the competition was being held at Innoventions because that would have been almost brand new at the time. So that makes sense. And of course, I stayed at Wilderness Lodge because Wilderness Lodge was new at the time.
Oh, I love Wilderness Lodge.
The other theory, which we'll go on when we start talking about other shows that I have, is that the more money the show made on ABC at the time, the more they got to do what they wanted. So, for example, Roseanne's episodes has a very different feel to the episodes from the Friday night ABC shows, because the Friday night ABC shows were barely moneymakers compared to Roseanne. So they were really cheesy. Disney probably told them kind of what they wanted in the episode, but Roseanne did exactly what she wanted on her show. So that's my two theories.
So yeah, Family Matters was 95. Roseanne was the following year, 96.
Yes.
I'm trying to see. I don't remember the Roseanne episode. It says the synopsis: fireworks and fanfare accompany the Connors on a whirlwind tour of the Magic Kingdom of Disney World when Darlene finds she's actually happy in the presence of Winnie the Pooh. That's the entire thing. I do remember, actually, I said I didn't see this, but I think I did. There was something about Dan wanting to go to Epcot because they had beer. I remember that was a thing. Like, the reason he went was because, and of course, Magic Kingdom didn't have beer back then. So that's not a park he would want to go to. Did Hollywood Studios always have beer? I can't remember that.
Yeah, they did.
They did. So Dan wanted to go to Epcot and go to World Showcase. I don't remember Darlene. Well, Darlene was miserable on the show in general, but I don't remember her and her Winnie the Pooh fandom. I don't remember that at all.
I remember perfectly.
Okay, let's hear it.
Unlike the cheesy Friday night ABC shows, I did continue to watch Roseanne through its entire run, and it was two episodes. One episode was just setting up why they were going to Disney World, which actually did have a couple funny things that made me think of you because since you're a travel agent, because on the first episode. They came into some money. It wasn't the lottery, situation because that was a couple seasons later. But they came into some money, and so they decided to bring pretty much everybody with them to Walt Disney World. And they were booking flights, and they were missing like three seats or 2 seats or something. So what Roseanne did was she called the airline and said, yes, I have 2 reservations. My name is Smith, and I have the reservations on this flight to Orlando. I'm going to have to cancel that. So they canceled it. And then, of course, she called back and booked those 2 seats.
Nice.
Because back then, I guess that's how you had to do it. You had to call. Obviously, there was no website or app.
I don't
to
think
do
in
it
'96 we were going online and booking flights. I don't think anyway. I think '96 was still very much the AOL days.
Of course.
I remember. Do you remember Prodigy? I had Prodigy before AOL.
No, I don't remember Prodigy.
Oh my God! I remember I signed up for a fantasy baseball team on Prodigy, and you would call and it would do the whole dial-in thing, and then it was all like your screen looked like it was like green and white. It was like 2 colors, and I had my fantasy baseball team, and I get updated every day. I'm boring the heck out of you. There's no reason to keep talking about this. Honestly, I'm talking to the guy who's obsessed with Golden Girls about my fantasy baseball team. It's not going to go over well. All right. So wait, so this wasn't, I was confused. I thought this was the one when the reason it went to Walt Disney World, Roseanne and crew, was because they won the lottery. But
no, they didn't go to once they won the lottery, they went to fancy places. They didn't go to Disney World at the time. during that year, they went to all over the world and stuff. But no, they just went because actually by that time Dan had been working for the city of Lanford, and then they laid them off and they gave him like a huge what do you call that when you get laid off and you get like settlement, but
severance package.
That's it, yeah, severance. So they decided to use the severance on this trip and bring every single person on the show with them. And so the first episode, which aired on February 20th of '96, was just them planning for it, and then the second episode was them actually there, and it was called Disney World War II. And the one quote that I love so much. So they're in a hotel. It's not a Disney hotel. They don't really mention, what hotel it is, but it's obviously not a Disney hotel. And they're about to go out, and somebody figures out that the curtains in the hotel room open to the remote control. So they're like all excited by that. And then somebody says like, wow, and this is all man-made. And Jackie says, I was reading about this. It's all used to be orange groves. But that's not what one Walt Disney saw. He saw that lake. He saw that castle. He saw that ample parking lot with convenience shuttle service. I always like that quote.
Sorry. They're still cheering in the background. That's pretty good. That's pretty good, Chuck. All right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and then there's a second quote from which I've used many times over the years when they get to the Magic Kingdom and there's rope drop, but the rope drop is like at Town Square, so they have to film them, actually running all the way down Main Street, which does not happen now because rope drop is always at the hub. But before rope drops, Jackie says like, so I want to live here. No, I want to be worthy of living here. I've used that quote many times over the years.
All right. Obviously, so far that the list that we've done, you were the biggest fan of Roseanne. I mean, it's not even close. And the Muppets. So far, we have your 2 favorites are Roseanne and the Muppets. I'm assuming maybe you didn't watch the Step by Step or the Boy Meets World episodes in Walt Disney World.
I did not. By the time I was in the 90s, I stopped watching any show that really was around children. I really was more for the sophisticated adult humor by then.
No family, no children, nothing. All right.
Sitcoms back then who had children were pretty boring. They were pretty boring, actually.
So you're right.
I realize now, looking back.
Listen, so step by step, I'll give you the rundown. This is going to be and you were exactly right. So step by step, the grandmother gives them their inheritance early. So the whole family and friends get to go to Walt Disney World, and they go and stay at Old Key West. And this is 96. Of course. So I guess that's right in 96. So they get to stay there. They never mentioned that it's Old Key West, but you can see clearly that it is from the exterior shots, the shots of the lobby. And then the kid, JT, do you know the weird, like, how the DVC rooms are, how they have the master bedroom, the one bedroom. They have the master bedroom, and they have that weird window that opens up to the bathtub in the bathroom.
I do remember that.
It's weird, right? Like, I don't know why that's the thing, but they actually make fun of it on Step by Step because JT tries to climb climbs through the window into the bathtub. That's like a fun thing. So let me try to think. The step-by-step, there were four, blah, blah, blah. There were 4 plots for the step-by-step show. One of them I remember. So, dude, they go everywhere. I'm looking at the pictures right now from Step by Step, and I don't know how many people remember the show Step by Step. They ride the resort.
There was no reason to remember it.
Oh, people like the show.
Although I did have Patrick Duffy and Suzanne Summers.
Yes.
You know, after they had left their much more famous and more money making shows.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So there's the girls, the 3 daughters from Step by Step, play in a band that gets to play at Pleasure Island. Of course they do, right? So you see Pleasure Island in '96. You see Magic Kingdom in '96. One of the young girls, Al, gets a crush on a guy from on a skipper from the Jungle Cruise. And there's a kid. Let me see. I can see if I can find his name. Jake. I don't think he's a son. I think he's like one of the friends. He wants to ride every single ride in Walt Disney World in one day. That's his whole shtick. That's one of the main things of the show. So for some reason, towards the end of the show, he gets to play Indiana Jones in Epic Stunt Spectacular. I don't know how he pulls that off. I don't know who Jake knows that he gets to do that. The crazy thing was that Steve played Indiana Jones on Full House like the year before.
Oh, so, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of, Step by Step, not only was it kind of like a ripoff of Full House or Family Matters, it also just completely lifted the same exact plot from those shows. But you'll be happy to know at the end of the episode, Jake does manage to ride every attraction in Walt Disney World in one day. And there's a presentation in front of Cinderella Castle where Mickey Mouse congratulates him. Just so you know.
Yes, and of course, because he was able to do that before Fast Pass and before there was actually no low seasons anymore. So, yes, he was able to do that back in the day.
96, that's 2 years before my college program. I remember my college program being able to bang out a ton of attractions.
Yes, of course. There were plenty of days and weeks and months when you could just go and do anything you want with a 10-minute wait.
Yeah, I remember going in March of 96 or 98 and going to studios, and literally, I'm not even kidding, my family, you know how they do the pre-shows or you're in the shows? So it's Superstar Television, you could be on Cheers or I Love Lucy, you could be on, you could be a volunteer in the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular show, you could be a volunteer in that water scene in a backlot tour. Somebody in my family got to volunteer at almost everything in one day. I was in the water tank show with my cousin. My cousin Nick. We were the 2 people that got to play the stunt show before you go back to the Catastrophe Canyon and stuff. My dad was an extra on Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular, and my aunt sat at the bar in Cheers for the Superstar Television. It was crazy. We all of us got to do something. We all got to be on stage that day. It was awesome. That doesn't happen anymore. It's so busy, even with the coronavirus taking over the entire world. You still can't get into the parks. Just forget about it. And I did see that post that you put up on social media. I won't say what you said, but it was pretty funny.
Well, I'm going on Monday. I'll let you know if I feel.
Where are you going? What park are you going to?
I am going to go to the studios because I'd like to be there to get a third time of riding Rise of the Resistance, and then obviously go on Mickey and Minnie's Railway. But the Railway is no big deal because after the first couple hours of the day, the wait time has been an hour and a half.
Yeah, it's still. I think Rise of the Resistance is still. That's why they didn't do the boarding time for Rise of the Resistance. From what I understand, they can only do boarding times or boarding parties for one attraction in all of Walt Disney World at a time. And they weren't about to stop doing a Rise of the Resistance because it's insane still every day. Yeah. All right. So more shows in the 90s. Boy Meets World in 1996. Amy, my wife, will be very upset when she hears that you did not watch the Boy Meets World episode.
I'm never a Boy Meets World fan.
Oh, my God. She loves that show. Holy cow. It's her favorite show of all time. So Corey and Topanga, the 2 main stars of Boy Meets World, are kind of at They end up getting married, by the way, for Girl Meets World later on, like 20 years later.
Yes, I've heard.
So they are kind of at odds in the Boy Meets World episode. There were really cool scenes in this one. Let me look. I know there's a really cool scene at the coral reef. There's a big kiss scene in front of the living seas. What else happens? Let me check. I'm going through it. Why am I still on step by step? There's a.
You mean because all those cheesy shows were exactly the same?
No, there's that's why there's a crossover. One of the girls from Step by Step is actually feeding the dolphins in Walt Disney World at the Living Seas with Corey from Boy Meets World. It's crazy. They're actually together. Topanga and her other her not her boyfriend, but some other dude. She's there with. Anyway, listen. It's I can't go into the whole plot. I'm sitting there reading about it and trying to do a podcast at the same time. They go, but anyway, they're in Magic Kingdom. They go to Epcot. They go to Coral Reef. They go to the Living Seas. Corey swims with the dolphins. It's a really good show. At the end, there is a kiss between Topanga and Corey in front of the Fountain of Nations, which unfortunately is no more. That is the entire Boy Meets World episode in a nutshell. So I'm really interested in what else you have, since I've mentioned like 12 things and you mentioned the Muppets.
Well, you mentioned the actual shows that filmed there, yes, but there have been shows that have mentioned going to Disney World. What? Hello?
I literally thought I was handing it over to you and you would go. And so I grabbed a drink of my soda and you go, what?
Oh, gotcha.
So name the shows. I want you to take it away for a minute.
Yes. So do you remember the Cheers episode that aired on December 17th of 1987? The Christmas episode. Do you remember what happens there with Cliff?
I don't. He's trying to. He's trying to win a trip to Disney World. Yes, with a canned food drive. Yes,
the post office canned food drive. Yes,
I do remember that,
So he does. Yeah, he does mention I think one of the quotes I wrote down is he says, "Imagine Pirates of the Caribbean, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, and me." Yeah. He's really excited. And at one point, Frasier asks him, "Oh, what is the food drive for?" And Cliff is like, "The poor, the needy, something like that. I don't know." And he was losing, but then he ended up winning because Woody had brought in one dented can of Span and a can of lychee nuts and chow mein noodles or something. But he had forgotten to put it into the food drive bin before the deadline, but technically it counted. So the implication is that he did win the trip and he did go. So he wasn't in the rest of the episode.
That's awesome. I do remember that. Yep. All right. What else?
A Golden Girls episode. The episode called Two Rode Together on February 18th of 89. So Dorothy and Sophia just went to a funeral of one of Sophia's friends. And, of course, it makes Dorothy think that, how much time does she have left, really, with Sophia? So she tells Sophia that they'll go away, together, anything that Sophia wants to do or go. And Sophia said she wants to go to Disney World and ride Space Mountain. That's all she cared about. That's all she wanted to do. So they did go, but once they got to the hotel, and it was obviously not a Disney hotel, Dorothy just wanted to sit and reminisce through old pictures and all that kind of stuff. So they wasted the entire day doing that, and Sophia was really upset because she really wanted to go to the park. And then the next morning, they did go to Magic Kingdom, but all you heard them talking on Space Mountain, but all they showed was, remember when you're in the queue for Space Mountain and then there's the safety advisory, stuff in the little video, and it used to show the same clip of people in the vehicle over and over and over again back in the day?
Yeah, I remember that.
So they just showed that. They showed the outside of Space Mountain and then they showed that clip while you hear Dorothy and Sophia on the ride. And that's it. But that's all they showed.
So they did technically go in the storyline. They just didn't.
They did. The storyline, they actually went. Yes, they just didn't tape in the park itself.
Gotcha. All right. What else you got?
Wow. Let's see. Well, for more modern times,
I have others.
Modern Family. Did you watch the Modern Family episode?
That's what I was going to bring up next. I loved the Modern Family Disneyland episode. It's so good.
It was great.
When they talk about,
and again, it so goes with my theory that in the 90s, there was those several ABC or NBC TV shows that Disney just told them what to write and what to do because they were just cheesy shows that only a few people watched every week. But the big hits, they get to do exactly the script that they want. It does not matter. It doesn't matter if they make fun of Disney. It doesn't matter if they put in there something inappropriate. It doesn't matter. They get to do exactly what they want. So, yes, I did love the Modern Family episode a lot, actually.
There's a few things I've really loved about that episode. The one, I love that Phil thought he was getting too old to ride roller coasters. He was riding with Luke, and at the end, he has an ear infection or he's got something. The flu. Yeah,
it turned out it was just a inner ear infection, equilibrium thing.
He's got the flu, so he's super excited that he's not just an old man. It's just that he actually has the flu and he's getting sick while he's riding. I love it's Haley and her boyfriend. I forget the boyfriend's name.
Oh yeah, they're married now, and they had twins.
I haven't seen the show in a while, but what the heck
final season?
What is his name? Dylan, and he is a Dapper Dan at one point. Another point, he's in the Little John costume from Robin Hood. And he starts talking to Haley. He's like, "Hey, it's me, it's Haley, or it's Dylan."
And when's the last time you ever saw Little John out in the parks? Have you seen him?
I don't think I've ever seen him. I remember him. So I was out at Disneyland for their 61st birthday. And in Disneyland, when they do for the birthday every year, they bring out all the characters on Main Street and at the train station. And they do like a song and they bring it. So I did see him then. It's the only time I've ever seen him anywhere in the park or anywhere. Did you see the list? And this is off the topic for a second, but did you see the list for the Midnight Magic DVC event? All the characters that'll be there that are going to be out. It was amazing.
No.
Oh, it's amazing. It's like characters from Hunchback. There's Phoebus and Esmeralda, and there's some of the rare DuckTale characters, and I forget. There's a ton of them. Like characters from Chicken Little, like Abby Mallard from Chicken Little. It's a big deal, right?
I just find it interesting that they have the costumes, even though they might not use them for years or decades.
I mean that the characters are in the Utilidors all that time, and they never come out. Not costumes, of course. There's only one Mickey Mouse. There's only one Abby Mallard. I just don't know what she does I don't know what she does the rest of her time in the Utilidors. She's hanging out down there, 5 years at a time, and then she gets to come out for a show.
Living off the royalties from the movie release, I guess.
from Chicken Little? I don't know. I think those royalties were used up the first couple of months.
That didn't make much.
So in Modern Family, all Jay wants to do the entire show is see great moments with Mr. Lincoln. Remember? He remembers how he took his kids to see great moments with Mr. Lincoln when they were kids. So eventually he finally gets to do it, which is cool because I'm a big nerd and I love great moments with Mr. Lincoln has kind of a cool, not a history to this podcast, but a little bit because I've had Bob on so often. And finally I'm going to talk to Bob on Monday, which should be great because I leave for Disneyland on Tuesday, so it won't be hectic at all. But I get to talk to Bob on Monday again. My favorite part of the show, two favorite parts of this episode. One was when I think it's Mitchell tells Cam tells Mitchell that they're going to go to Downton Disney.
Yes.
and Mitchell's like, "Oh,
I hate the fact that Downtown Disney was called Disney Springs, so that I can't use that line now with everyone every time I go."
Instead of calling it Downtown Disney, he calls it Downton Disney. Yeah. He's like, "You've been watching too much Downton Abbey." That and I love the little girl, and I forget her name. Is it Lily?
Lily.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lily.
So she wears the wrong shoes.
No, that's
Gloria. Gloria wears the wrong shoes. But Lily keeps running away, and they have her on a leash and all. Which yes. So at the end, Jay buys her high heels, princess heels, and he's like, she's not going to run away now.
But buys slippers for Gloria because the opposite problem with Gloria.
Right.
Yes.
Right. It was a really good show. Dude, they even
That was
break out
brilliant.
the 4-seater bicycle with the Dapper Dans. I've never seen that. I've only seen that in videos from like the 50s and 60s. I've never seen the 4-seater like tandem bike in Disneyland at all. I've seen the Dapper Dans 100 times there. I've never seen it. I'm leaving in a few days. I want to see it.
Speaking of that, do you have the Goldbergs on your list?
I don't. No, I didn't see that one.
I didn't either. But the big
I didn't
deal,
know they did.
I've watched every episode of the Golden Girls, on the Goldbergs since it's come out. I love the show, but because it takes place in the '80s, when they did their Disneyland episode, they really redid stuff so that it looked like Disneyland in the '80s. It looked like there was no California Adventure. It looked like they were in the parking lot and then walked right up and everything.
Oh man,
yeah, they went all out.
That I haven't seen this one. I got to see it. I love the Goldbergs. I was super late on the Goldbergs wagon. Which is really weird because it's based.
Yeah, because it's about you.
I know. It's about my life. Like, it really is.
It is literally, in every episode, they mention all the things that have been in your life, all the places you've ever gone to, the mall, everything that you know about your life, it's there.
I know.
Except that you're not Jewish. That's the only difference.
I know, but Amy is.
True.
So I get some points for being married to a Jewish person, don't I? I think I get some points there. No, I've seen. So here's what happened. We bought the first season a few years ago, Amy and I, and started to watch it. And we would let Alexa watch some of it because she was little and she didn't know. So the darn, what is the movie, the horror movie from the 80s that the kid goes to see in the first season? Poltergeist. So he goes to see, the grandfather lets him go see Poltergeist. And there's like scenes from he has like a ventriloquist dummy in his room. And they're scary. And Alexa was like 4, and she saw that, and that was it for the Goldbergs in our house. Now, whenever we mention watching that show, they're like, no, it's scary. So we haven't seen it, but I have to watch it. Do you know, is it on Netflix or anything? Can I get it?
No, it's not.
Because it's still on, right? It's still
it's still on. Yeah.
Great, funny show.
And
awesome
they even
show.
have a spin-off now with the school in the 90s, which I don't like. I haven't watched it, but they do have a spin-off now.
Well, I probably like that one because I was much more of a kid in the 90s than you were. You were an old man by then. You were already in your 40s.
I've always been ahead of my time.
You have.
I have.
So wait, what else? What other ones? I know the George Lopez show went in the. I never watched one episode of the George Lopez show, so I cannot. I don't know anything about it. The Middle I know went, and Blackish went. Honestly, I've watched no sitcoms except for Modern Family since my kids have been born, so I haven't seen any of those. George Lopez, The Middle, Blackish, anything on those? Have you seen them?
I've watched all 3 shows. Middle is the only show that I watched I've watched every episode of The Middle. So I did catch their Disney World episodes. And actually, so a few weeks before the episode aired, they were filming. And at the time I was working at the airport, and I don't know if you know the Orlando International Airport, because it is 2 sides and everything. When you're on the first floor where the car rental agencies are, behind it is a road, and it's used, besides, used for people who work at the airport, it's used by people picking up, like, important people, like VIPs. So one day I was just at work and I was walking back and forth, through that area between the A side and the B side of the airport. And I did see the cast getting into an SUV with Disney guest relations people.
The Middle?
So I was very excited.
The Middle people?
The what?
Was that The Middle, you said?
Yes, The Middle.
That's cool.
Yes.
I've seen a few episodes of that show. Very funny. My favorite character is Sue. I think she's hilarious.
Oh, yeah. She's the best character.
She's the best character on the show.
She should have had her own. She should have had a spinoff. But
then she got too old.
I don't know.
She wasn't a kid anymore. She wasn't a kid when she was playing a kid. She was like in her 20s when she was playing a teenager.
She could have they could do a spinoff of her when she's now.
I would love that. I would think that would be, it's like the 90210 kids who were like 45 playing high school kids. Gabrielle Carteris, when she just did the reunion, she's like 60 years old. like, what are you doing? It's crazy. All right.
And, the funny thing about The Middle, the plot line is that they won a trip, but they won the trip to Disneyland, not Disney World, but they drove to Disney World and just showed up. Yes. Which is hilarious. I mean, if you watch the show, it's, they just have the worst luck. So it really made sense, actually.
Yeah, that's pretty
that happened to them. Yeah.
That's really funny, man. That's really, really funny. All right. So anything else you want to mention? I left off like all the like the Disney made shows, like the Wonderful World of Disney. I mean, that stuff is all
right. No, that wouldn't count because it wasn't a real show going to Disney World.
right. Do you have anything else to add, or you pretty much all set?
The only one that I put for is there's going to be very few people who who listen to this podcast who know this, but the PBS station in Miami in the late 70s had a show called Que Pasa USA. It was a sitcom. It was a great sitcom, and it was about a Cuban family living in Miami. But the point of the show, because it was on PBS, was that they always spoke in English and Spanish back and forth, so it could teach Spanish people in Miami to learn English, and it could teach English people in Miami to learn a little bit of Spanish. So there was actually an episode in the final season that aired in 1980 where the grandparents went to Disney World. So you only heard about them talk about it while the rest of the family stayed home and had their own issues. But then the grandparents came back, and they were having souvenirs, and they were singing in English, Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse. But they said it exactly like my grandmother says it. But yes, that's my honorable mention. But there's going to be very few people who know the show Que Pasa USA.
You know what's really cool is somebody who's listening to this just heard that and was like, oh my God, I remember that show.
Well, there's got to be somebody, especially people who grew up in Miami. But it was shown on PBS in other cities in the country too, but probably only cities that had a large Hispanic population. Well, I can't imagine that they would have shown it in PBSs all across the country.
If you've seen Que Pasa USA, let Chuck know. Right in Chuck's phone number.
I have seen every episode of Que Pasa USA that's ever been on. They're all on YouTube.
I'm going to give your phone number. Times. Chuck's phone number is, no, I'm kidding. Not really. I'm not even going to try to guess. 561 area code?
No, 386 actually. 386.
I have Daytona. How do we don't know anybody's phone numbers anymore. Nobody knows anybody's phone numbers. Just in the phone. Like if I ever lost my phone, I'd be done.
I know.
The only phone number I remember is Amy's. It's the only one. And the only reason I know it is because it's one digit off from mine. Literally the only reason.
Well.
So yeah, that's we got them the same day in Florida, like 20 years ago. Not 20, but it's like at least 15, 14 years ago. Anyway, all right. So do you have, to close out the show, do you have a favorite? I know that you pretty much the entire show that I prepared for, you were not prepared for. So do you have a favorite episode of these shows, a favorite special from the 80s, 90s, 2000s that either went to or featured Walt Disney World?
So you mean out of the ones we've just discussed?
Yeah, sure. What's your favorite?
Yes. Honestly, with all things considered, it would be the Roseanne episode. Probably because I am such a huge fan of Roseanne. So and it was perfect for what the show is like. So I think it was just it was very well done.
That's very cool. Mine. I'm going with Modern Family. They did such a good job. I think you're right. It wasn't. You're right about the 90s shows. They did have very generic humor. The plot lines were all silly about trying to ride the most rides or being princess for a day, or it was all the same stuff. So to have Modern Family go and do a legit Modern Family, like they had the same sense of humor as Modern Family. They didn't have to change the show. They made Disneyland fit around Modern Family. That made it.
Exactly.
That's what made it great.
I do honestly think Roseanne was the first one, and it makes sense to me because Roseanne was such a humongous moneymaker for ABC that she did exactly what she wanted. So if ABC had told her at the time, "Oh, please put this in your episode," she'd be like, "No."
Yeah, they probably wouldn't have done it. Yeah, they probably never
Final
would have
word.
done it. So just a little known fact about the George Lopez. I just read this as I was skimming through my notes. I forgot to mention it. They spend the second half of the show, and it was only a half-hour show. They spend the second half of the show in Disneyland, but the first half of the episode, they have hidden Mickeys hidden throughout the sets of the show. So I thought that was kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's fun.
Anyway, man. Well, Chuck, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for recording. I do miss doing these podcasts, but you got to do them more often for sure.
I know. I travel for work now, so it is hard to coordinate, but we can try again.
I know you've been everywhere the last few months. It's awesome. So
yeah,
Chuck, you're the best.
Traveling a lot. Yeah.
You're the best. Thank you again. And I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
And that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Ear to There Disney Podcast. Thank you to my guest, the one, the only, Chuck Rodriguez. It's always awesome to have Chuck on the show. And like I said, when we were closing it out, I miss Chuck, so I hope he gets to do more shows really, really soon. And thank you so much. You're awesome for listening. I really, 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 really appreciate it. Listen, there's a billion Disney podcasts out there, literally a billion. So, well, maybe not literally a billion, but there's a lot. And I know you could be listening to anything right now on your walk with your dog, on your commute, on the treadmill. Thank you so much for listening to this one. I really appreciate it. You were awesome. Just remember, there will be a new episode of the Ear to There Disney Podcast next week. And also look out for a new Walt Disney World Word of the Week as well. So until next time, have yourself an amazing week. You will catch me live a bunch from Disneyland next week. I'll be out there from March 10th through March 13th, 2020. Look for me on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, as I will be doing as much as I can live from the parks. So I hope to see you and hear you and talk to you then. Have yourself an amazing week if I didn't say it already. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Ear to there.